This week in games, GTA 6 got announced, Sony delays 6 different PlayStation games, Xbox works with AI in a bad way, and we review Alan Wake 2. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 173. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Tavin, you distracted me. I'm trying to share a video from twitter.com.
No, nobody wants. It's not called that anymore, and nobody wants you to share this Twitter, Connor.
Do you know what the funny thing is? When you want to do an embedded link on Discord, the one that works still is you change the X to Twitter, so it's still Twitter in my mind.
I don't know what that means. I just hit copy and paste. So, you know.
You don't want to let people watch the video in Discord. You want to make them go elsewhere to do it. You're lazy.
Just click on the link.
Lazy.
Just click on the link.
You're lazy.
I sent a link. Click on it. You know? Especially on the YouTubes. Go click on my links, YouTubes. Hey, you in the group chats, the Discords. Click on my links. I know you're not doing it. I can see the numbers. Go click on them, motherfucker. Hit a like. God. You think I don't send them every video, you know? You'd think they would at least like do the decency of clicking on the ones I send them. Connor, how you been this week?
I've been good. You act like we haven't been talking for the past couple hours now. Well, I always acknowledge this.
You know, it's for the people who don't see this. They don't see that in this order. They don't see this in that order.
See, that's what I do. I provide the window into what you all don't see. So you get the whole Two Penny Gamescast experience.
Yeah, that's what they want, Connor. They want the non-edited thing at all. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that leads to a better viewing experience.
We have to.
You know what I like the most about a movie, Connor? You know when I go to watch a movie, you know what my favorite part is when they show us the film in the order that they shot it in. That's the best part of any movie.
Yeah, I don't know. But wait a second. They don't do that already?
No. Connor, I don't know if you know this, but if there's a scene at the beginning of the movie and a scene at the end of the movie, but they're in the same location, shot those on the same day.
Really?
Probably. If they can manage their time well and they can get through 2 scenes in one day.
Sounds
how many
lazy.
scenes? How many days does it take to shoot a scene, Connor? The world may never know.
I think I'm actually knowing it now since there's filming going on here right now.
There it is. Yeah, that was a little bit of an inside joke here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, this is the Two Penny Gamescast, in which every week me and Connor come to you Monday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. We give you the new news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each bring to you 2 topics, 2 pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. Drop a comment down below. Let us know what your pennies and topics of discussion you want heard talked about on the show, so that we can bring in the audience 2 pennies next week. Remember, you can get the show every week, Monday, 8 a.m. Central Time, but you can also watch it live, twitch.tv/2pennygames, every Sunday at about 4 p.m. Central, at least until we change that, which is probably going to happen very, very soon, because, you know, we've got lives and schedules and things, and those need to be adhered to sometimes. So we're figuring some scheduling things out. We didn't go live this week because our apartment is under construction, essentially. But that's not going to stop us from giving you the news you need to know, is it, Connor? Especially when we jump into our first topic of the day, our first penny. Also, by the way, Alan Wake 2 review at the end of this episode, or it's just on the YouTube channel. You can go watch it there. Connor, take it away with your first penny.
Well, unfortunately, we're not done talking about layoffs. I think we've done it 4 times in a row.
Dude, it's every week at this point, man. Like, and honestly, like watching it through the lens of like real time, it feels like every day at this point.
Mm-hmm. And in this case, it is Wayfinder. So this is an article from Polygon. Wayfinder, Warframe publisher, Digital Extremes, cuts workers, divests from Wayfinder. Nicole Carpenter is the writer for this article. Wayfinder publisher Digital Extremes laid off more than 30 people, the company has confirmed. The layoffs were focused on the company's external projects and publishing teams, which were handling Airship Syndicate's Wayfinder. Employees were pulled into small meetings Thursday and quickly lost access to company accounts. The layoffs come after Digital Extremes, which released Warframe in 2013, replaced founder James Schmaltz with former Wayframe creative director Steve Sinclair as the new CEO in October. The future of Digital Extremes publishing games like Wayfinder is unclear. Digital Extremes is looking to focus its resources internally and will stop supporting Wayfinder. It will transfer full ownership of over the next few months to developer Airship Syndicate, a Digital Extremes representative told Polygon. Action MMO Wayfinder was released in early access on August 17th to mixed reviews, originally supported by both Airship Syndicate and Digital Extremes. Quote, we can confirm we have made the difficult decision to cease operations of our external projects division, a Digital Extremes representative told Polygon. We have had to say goodbye to a number of hardworking and highly valuable team members as a result. Digital Extremes had a Warframe Twitch stream scheduled for Thursday, which has since been postponed. On LinkedIn, the company said it needed to, quote, rally 100%, end quote, on its in-house projects like Warframe and Soulframe to meet goals. Wayfinder developer Airship Syndicate wrote on X, formerly Twitter, that it has, quote, no plans to stop developing its game. We look forward to continuing to grow the game alongside our players as we take on operations, it wrote. The game has a long way to go in early access, but with belief from our players and our dedicated Airship crew, we can and will get there, end quote. One laid-off Digital Extremes worker told Polygon that Digital Extremes was their dream job. Quote, I'm sick to my stomach, they said. I don't know how I'm going to pay rent. Multiple impacted people were recently hired within the past 3 months, they said. If it feels like video game studios are cutting jobs every few days, that's because they are. Over the past few weeks, hundreds of people have been laid off across the industry. On Tuesday, it was nearly 100 people at Ubisoft. Before that, Destiny 2 developer Bungie went through layoffs. In late September, Epic Games cut 16% of its staff, leaving more than 800 people without jobs. A website tracking game industry layoffs has counted more than 6,000 lost jobs this year alone. A November 10th update was that they... Never mind. Ignore that. That's this is just one of those situations where it's just a continuing spiral of just shit in this games industry. I mean, this is, from my understanding, from reading this article and from all things I've heard, isn't as egregious as something like Epic Games, who acquired something called Bandcamp and then just laid off a bunch of people shortly after they acquired it, or Bungie, who have, put all of their eggs in one basket and are now, seeing the negatives of that with their layoffs. This doesn't have that overlying issue, but it's still a layoff, and layoffs just, we got to cover them every single time on this show, because Tavin usually does this this spiel, I guess you could call it, though that it's kind of undercutting the story itself, which is we put people first because that's what these games are made by them, and without them we wouldn't have games. So video games take secondary to these kinds of stories because especially in these days where, like they said, every single day, every single week, we just get layoffs. It's almost become expected on this show for us to cover one next week because it's just been consistent over and over and over again. And the fact that it's one of the best years in gaming just is a bigger kick in the balls to then also see all of these people lose their jobs as a result of making good games. This one obviously not being so much so as I wouldn't say good game or bad game because I haven't personally played it, but certainly not the most well-received game, and as a result didn't make as much money as it needed to prevent these layoffs from happening. I don't know if there was an issue on the management side of things that caused this to happen, and it was completely unavoidable, which we have seen happen in the past, but regardless of what the cause is at the core of it, it's a sad thing that now we're having to talk about this again. Oh, yeah.
I mean, yes, all of that is true, but at the same time, it just seems like we're just seeing this huge wave of mass greed happening in the industry and mass unchecked capitalism working its evil ways in this industry. My understanding of all the conversations that are happening around this subject of how many people are being laid off and how many people are losing their jobs and how many people losing their livelihoods is that people in leadership positions, sure, they may make the wrong bet. Sure, they may go down the wrong turn, but had the best intentions. That is always a possibility. But more often than not, they understand the choices that they're making and the risks that they are taking and how those risks will affect those people. And we keep reading all these articles of X number of developers laid off, but I'm not seeing any headlines, any reportings of, hey, yo, our CEO took a 20% pay cut because they don't need it and they saved 200 jobs with that. I'm not seeing any of that happening. And to me, it's like, how can we allow a handful of people to affect hundreds, if not thousands, of people's lives, and they're just sitting there overpaid, underworked, and contributing nothing but misery to the people that they're in charge of. You're choosing profits over people every single time that you go down these routes. Many of them know that they're going to end up, in 6 months to a year having to lay people off because of these choices that they're making, and they're choosing to keep the profits every time over the people. And it's really, really quite gross. I'm not 100% saying that's what's happening here. It sounds like, Warframe guys were trying something new, it's not working out, and all of that. But what are we doing to save these people's jobs on the same end? Like, are we making the smart bets? Are we cutting the right corners in order to ensure that people can pay their rents, that people can pay their medical bills, and so forth? Which is gross that we even have medical bills, at least in this country.
Past examples have shown that, it is just them being greedy and not taking pay cuts.
So it's just a matter of, like, man, we need a serious change in this industry, and we've been saying it every week for the last, I don't even know, all year, man. We've been talking about this all year. We've been saying there's just a crazy amount of layoffs happening in this industry, and it hurts to see, especially for people who want us, people like us who want a space in this industry. Obviously not on the development side, but in the same breath, it's like, man, how can we be excited about this when it's just led to so much misery for so many other people? It's hard to be excited for, a Mass Effect 5 or whatever, or a Grand Theft Auto 6, which we will talk about later. Like, I'm not excited for these fucking games because I don't believe that these companies are treating their people with the best interest at heart.
Most certainly not. And, some people might take issue with what I'm about to say, but the clearest path towards rectifying this problem isn't honestly even on the gamers, because if we don't buy the games, well, the developers don't get paid, and then we see these layoffs, which are more justifiable from that point of view. But if we do pay them, clearly they have no incentive to be treating their workers with more respect, seeing as how we've had all these layoffs. So basically, the way I see it is that the ball is in the court of the game developers themselves, particularly with unionization. That is the best way to get bargaining power for workers, is to say, no, we are not going to help you make these games. We're not going to just sit here and take it. In fact, we'll refuse to make your games, which is how you participate in strikes. That's how unions hold their power over the companies that they work for, until you give us better deals. You prevent us from having to just be laid off before any other measures are taken. And when layoffs do happen, we don't get screwed out of our benefits. I mean, last week we talked about Bungie. They laid off a bunch of workers, and their benefits were going to end the next day. So they not only just screwed them out from taking their jobs and all of that entails, but they just completely took away the lifeline that they have for the ridiculous things that you have to pay for in this country, like you said earlier, healthcare bills. And so unionization is the key. It is the path. We've seen a little bit of movement, particularly with Raven Software, a subsidiary of Activision Blizzard, which now they're under the Microsoft catalog of games. Don't worry.
It's this one. They belong to here, but they just got bought by this.
Yeah. But we need to see more of that, and hopefully we see some. Especially with this year, maybe game developers will say, "Okay, enough is enough." I know it's a tough road because striking is not easy. We've seen it with SAG-AFTRA, the Writers Guild, AFTRA, where they were, boycotting and not working and promoting their movies, and we actually saw some people I think some of the bigger name actors put money towards funds to help people pay their bills because they, were going so long without a job. And the tactic of the companies that they were boycotting, that they were striking against, was just to wait them out. These are people that have massive amounts of money, and they were just expecting to sit on that. Thankfully, the deal did end up going through, and the strike is now over. But that's their mindset. That's the mindset of the people who run these companies. And so you have to, be heavy-handed with how you deal with them. Obviously not violence, but unionization. It's worked in the past, and it can work now.
Just to fact check you real quick, SAG-AFTRA is the actors,
Actors, yes.
Writers Guild of America, which also striked and also seemingly had a successful strike this year. Is for the writers. Just a quick thing,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Better,
But
yeah.
I mean, to echo your point, like I mean, I don't want to put all onus on game devs because that's not fair to just say, hey, it's your fight. You know, don't you know. Don't let your ship sink. But I do agree that unionization is needed in this industry heavily. What form that takes, I don't know. The actual workers in the industry need to voice that, but they have been voicing that for a long time. And you know, for so often in this industry, it's like, well, we get, you know, games are so hard. You know, games are so hard to make. People are so volatile. This will just make the industry more volatile. No, it won't. It'll create some security. It'll allow us to you know, develop this industry into something that is going to last another 50, 60, 100 years, as opposed to, you know, dying in its infancy. So, especially because so much money gets made in this industry. Everybody's making so much money, but there are no jobs. What? That you can't make that make sense. Speaking of which, Sony's delaying games. all this money being made, man. All this money. But here we are still. Sony delays 6 PlayStation games. We are pulling a Game Rant article from Dominic Bosniak. Cutting down ahead. Sony has delayed half a dozen PlayStation games that were originally planned to hit the market over the next 2.5 years. The newly postponed titles are all part of the double-digit batch of Sony live service games that the company first confirmed in February of 2022. Back then, the gaming giant said it was looking to put out at least 10 titles utilizing the games-as-service business model by the end of its fiscal year 2025, which ends in March 2026. PlayStation Studios head Herman Holst later mentioned that the company's near-term GAS, G-A-A-S, Games as Service, roadmap expanded to 12 titles as of October 2022, while also promising that these abundant PlayStation Live Service games will all come to PC one day. The number of those planned release has now seemingly been halved, as suggested by Sony Group COO Hiroki Totaki? Yes, no? Okay. During the company's latest earning calls, while the official avoided using the word delay outright, he said that Sony is currently in the process of figuring out when to release half of the GAS titles from the initially promised batch. Meanwhile, Totoki committed to launching the remaining 6 games by early 2026, VGC reports. His remarks indicate there have been some changes to the original plan to release all 12 of the upcoming live service games in the next 2.5 years. Exactly which titles from the company's first big GAS batch ended up being postponed is unclear, as most of them haven't even been announced as of today. The only 2 live service titles that Sony has confirmed to date are Naughty Dog's The Last of Us multiplayer spinoff and Bungie's extraction shooter Marathon. Totoki implied that these delays were brought about by standards concerned, highlighting how Sony should not compromise game quality as part of its games as service foray. In spite of the setback, the gaming giant's overall strategy remains unchanged, with Totoki confirming that live service games remain an integral part of Sony's long-term plans. PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan previously said that the company doesn't intend to pursue games as service offerings at the expense of its AAA single-player experiences, but in addition to them. Well, I wonder where this is coming off of the back of.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know. Maybe a Last of Us game that isn't quite getting it together and not quite finding the fun. Maybe the golden child of games as service being Destiny, having record lows this year and laying to the layoff of many employees. Again, this is mostly under Bungie's management, not PlayStation's. And man, video games are hard to make. They take a long time to make, and they cost a lot of money. And, you know, we get to the end of the road, and sometimes, you know, you put it out, and the people don't like it. And the people don't care, and it wasn't marketed the right way, and the messaging wasn't out, and there's only so much time in the day, and Fortnite is eating up all the air in the room right now. So, what are you gonna do, PlayStation? You're gonna commit to these 12 games? If I were to guess, those games that are more in their development infancy that aren't so far along in production, are gonna be axed or moved or evolved into something else or changed into something else. Again, I pitched this idea months ago at this point, maybe last year. I forget exactly when this happened, but when Rumbleverse shut down and we kept seeing closure after closure after closure of games as service games, I put forward the idea that, hey, Sony, Xbox, Activision Blizzard, all you big dogs, a games as service game doesn't need to last forever. If it does, great, cool, good for you. But it doesn't need to last forever. Stop putting all your chips in this basket because we don't have enough time to care. Like, we just don't. We can't keep putting money in these subpar games. One, because these games often come out and aren't great because you're forcing studios that aren't good at working under these or with this game design and making them work with this. You're seeing these examples with BioWare, with Anthem, Rocksteady, with Suicide Squad. Hey, guess what? Suicide Squad's going to come out. It's going to get a bunch of 7s. Everyone's going to be like, this isn't what we want. And then the fan base is going to die. It's going to dwindle to a small amount that'll keep it going for a year to 2. And then guess what? Oh, another company or another dev studio in which you did the same thing. Crystal Dynamics, Marvel's Avengers. Same exact thing. Stop putting all your chips in these baskets. Make smarter moves. Make smaller moves. 12 is a lot, Sony. I don't know if you realize that, but 12 in the next 3 years is more games, I think, than your PlayStation first-party studios have been outputting in the last 4 years. So, let's take a step back, let's think about it, and let's make smart choices that make sense, attached to IPs that make sense. Hey, guess what? I think Bungie's Marathon is probably going to be pretty good, because Bungie's pretty good at making video games. And they're pretty familiar with this model. Obviously, they make mistakes. Obviously, they don't knock it out of the park every time. Hey, guess what? Marathon's been delayed. It's probably so that they can make the final shape really, really good. Because guess what? They need to make the final shape really, really good. Or else it's going to be disastrous for Bungie. The Last of Us multiplayer game isn't coming together, seemingly. And it's been put on ice. Even though there is still word of hey, development is continuing, yada, 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 yada. I'll believe it when I see it type thing. Guess what? Naughty Dog shouldn't be the ones making this game. Maybe you attach someone else who do have multiplayer roots, stronger multiplayer roots, and you have them work with Naughty Dog in making a Last of Us multiplayer game that's worth the asking price. And this line of thinking can just continue down this realm. Hey, you put out a bunch of new IP in that last PlayStation presentation. What are those things called? The big ones.
Plays.
No, the bigger one. The presentation? Is that what it's called? I forget.
Yeah.
Showcase. The last PlayStation Showcase. You put out a bunch of new games. We saw Fair Games. We saw Marathon. We saw Concord. We saw Helldivers 2. I really hope Helldivers 2 is great. But for Fair Games and Concord, I'm sitting here and I'm going, who cares? Who cares? These studios should have been given IP that means something to PlayStation players, in which we can actually all engage with it and have a good time with. These games that you're giving us are new, which is great. I love new, but you're asking us to care about a universe that has no buy-in. And granted, Bungie did this with Destiny, but it took them a long time to get there. And now we just have to sit back and go. And also, let's be honest, Bungie was riding the high off their clout with Halo. And so now we're sitting here, we're looking at these new studios who, guess what? A new studio is not going to knock it out of the park and deliver a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. They're just not. It takes time. Naughty Dog has been around for a long-ass time. Santa Monica Studios has been around for a long-ass time. Insomniac Games have been around for a long-ass time. And they've only been delivering 10 out of 10 experiences for the last 2 generations. They've been here for 5, but they've only been delivering masterpieces for the last 2. So what are we doing here?
Honestly, the only thing I can add to this story is maybe just focus on not making so many big games that take so many years to make. Just do ones that take a couple years. I mean, there is a time when studios would come out with games every 2 years. back in like the 2000s, and they were quality games. They still
Sometimes it was every year.
Do it. Yeah, sometimes it was every year. And with the technology and the workforce you have today, you should be able to shell out those kinds of games, at the same relative pace and make them good games. They don't have to be these high super fidelity games. They don't need to be using the latest in the adaptive triggers that the PS5 has, or a quick transition from big open worlds to the spot you need to go to specifically. You can just make them smaller games, and with the technology nowadays, they'll play amazing. And yet they just, as you said, they just keep doing this games as service thing. Stop doing
bigger. Keep getting bigger. Go bigger.
Yeah.
Hey, Last of Us Part 2, make it double the size of the first one. What? The first one was perfectly paced, though. Why do we need a second one? Because we're putting a second game inside this game. Okay, cool, but does that require another 10 hours? I don't know if it does. Maybe another 6. 6 would be cool. Another 10? I don't know. And again, like, you look around. Insomniac's doing pretty fucking good right now. They've put out 3 games this console generation.
Yeah.
We're only halfway through the generation. They put out 3 games for it, plus a remaster. And guess what? They're all about the same size, So Insomniac knows what they're doing at the level of quality that they want to do it. And sure, you can criticize their side quests for not being innovative enough, but at the same time, every one of those side quests left me in tears. So what are we doing here, Sony? What's going on here? Like, bigger doesn't mean better. Sure, we have examples where we got bigger and it did get better. God of War Ragnarok is an excellent example. Bigger than the first game. I think it's better than the first game. And Last of Us Part 2, same thing. I think it's bigger than the first. It's obviously bigger than the first game, and I do think it's better than the first game. But that's up for debate with some people. Connor, you're an idiot. But sorry. But yeah, we keep going into this cycle of like, yo, what? Like, why are we just hitting ourselves in the face and doing this over and over again? Especially when you can look at the landscape of games. Like, look at the landscape. This has been a time coming for a while now. I understand it takes so long, to get these games going. But PlayStation, Fortnite been around for a while now, son. Grand Theft Auto 5 been around for a while now, son. Like, how many have come and gone since then? How many have stayed? Not many. So why do we keep doing this? It's okay if you put out a game and your plan is like, hey, we're going to put out this multiplayer game. We're going to support it for 3 years after release. And that's it. And then we're moving on. We're cutting it off and going on to the next one. It felt like Bungie was doing that in the release for Destiny 2. It's like, hey, we got a game. We're going to support it for a number of years. And then we're going to put out another one. That's what it felt like. But now we're like all these years later and Destiny 2 is still Destiny 2. And now we're only just now starting Marathon, which maybe is coming out next year. We'll see. We'll hope. We'll cross our fingers. Or 2025. We're going to cross our fingers and hope. But we'll get to the end of 2026. And guess what? Of these 12 games that we're supposed to release, I'd be shocked if 3 do.
Guess we'll find out. As we always wait and see.
I guess we'll not 3. I'll be shocked if 6 do. But I'll be impressed if 3 make it. And of those, if one of them hits, I would be shocked. I'd be like, oh, wow, they did it. But we're going to find out. Oh, Connor, we've been talking about greed. We've been talking about all of these expectations on all these big companies. And let me tell you what, my friend, never, ever, ever would I think that good old Xbox would be fumbling a bag, man. Xbox, we've been on this show saying many, many times that Xbox has been making all the right moves for their people, seemingly. They've been doing out some great consumer-friendly practices. They've been taking care of their workers, seemingly. And it seems like it's been a great time. Now, have there been some Microsoft mishaps and misfires? Yes, but overall, it seems like a pretty cool place to make games. But it may just be a place where nobody can make games anymore, because Xbox partners with InWorld to build AI game dialogue and narrative tools at scale. This is a VGC article from Tom Ivan. Haiyan Zhang, Xbox's general manager of gaming AI, said the goal of partnership is to create new state-of-the-art tools for... Xbox has announced a multi-year deal with InWorld to build AI dialogue and narrative tools at scale. Haiyan Zhang, Xbox's general manager of gaming AI, said the goal of the partnership is to create new state-of-the-art tools for multi-platform developers of all sizes. Quote, together, we aim to deliver an accessible, responsibly designed multi-platform AI toolset to assist and empower creators in dialogue, story, and quest design, she wrote. In Zhang's words, the toolsets will include an AI design co-pilot that assists and empowers game designers to explore more creative ideas, turning prompts into detailed scripts, dialogue trees, quests, and more. And an AI character runtime engine that can be integrated into the game client, enabling entirely new narratives with dynamically generated stories, quests, and dialogue for the players to experience. InWorld hit the headlines in August after a Grand Theft Auto 5 mod let players talk to NPCs using generative AI platform. The use of AI in the entertainment world is currently a major point of contention. Some members of the acting community are concerned that it will be used in an adverse way, with studios attempting to cut costs by using it to replace actors or to tweak their images or performances without fairly compensating them. In September, as we talked about before, members of SAG-AFTRA, the labor union of American actors, voted for overwhelmingly in favor of potential video game strike action. So far, negotiations with video game companies and their performance production arms have failed due to what SAG-AFTRA calls unacceptable terms of, quote, some of the issues most critical to our members, including wages that keep up with inflation, protections around exploitative uses of artificial intelligence, and basic safety precautions. Damn it, Xbox. Damn it. Guys, okay. Let me take a step back. Let me think. How can we use this to use AI and technology to advance this thing? There's a lot of great different ways that we can do it. We've talked about before how AI is very often used in game creation to sort of help develop assets or place assets down, develop topography and all these different things. AI is used in game development all the time. Usually, it's to circumvent longer processes and just make things shorter. Now, all of that's cool when you're talking about building out a world and being able to kind of like just get a general landscape and then have artists come in and sculpt it correctly and get those finer details in. Great. This is not that. We are going to just straight up take the art and soul out of narrative, writing, creation. We're going to take all of that out and replace it with robots and hopefully develop it to a point to where a 6-man writing team is now a 2-man writing team. And now we've, severely limited jobs in that field. Writing can only be done one way, and it's by humans writing these things out. And the use of this is dangerous. This is a step in the direction of just replacing a human creative team all the way together. This is the type of stuff that makes me go, oh shit, man, Skynet right around the fucking corner. And I can't help but wonder why in the fucking world Xbox of all people would do this when Xbox all the fucking time cares about the developers. They're the one showcasing their dev teams and putting pictures of everybody up on their showcases and so forth, alongside Bethesda when Bethesda was solo. Hey man, Bethesda's a community. This is the team of Bethesda. All of that. And now we got to sit here and take this bullshit about how a multi-year thing where you're developing this AI tool set to develop quests, to develop dialogue. Now, I'm sure it would be cool if I walked up to every individual NPC of a video game and was able to have a conversation with them. That would be cool. Yes. But is it worth the cost of admission? I struggle to see how.
Yeah, it's, there's, honest actors who say that this is just, not going to infringe upon the workers and their ability to make games without being replaced. But I think to your point with Microsoft saying how they used to care about developers, I think that's true to a point, but this is one of those times where at a certain point in time, when you're able to do so much greater things with AI generated content that humans can't do, such as coming up with things on the fly, because it is cool. It does sound nice. I think then that's when the dollar signs start speaking louder than the human aspect of things. I, as a general purpose, even if I can give credit to certain companies for treating their workers right, I'm always suspicious that that's just, a lip service. They're just trying to make
it's just marketing. They just want to make them seem self cool.
Exactly. I'm going to pull a quote that actually recently came on from Tetsuo Hara. Now, Tetsuo Hara wrote Fist of the North Star, a manga series that is just badass in all ways. It's hard-boiled, as some would say. And this is what he said about AI. I'm quoting him. What AI cannot do is be prepared to die. You have to suffer, suffer, and suffer and think it through. Then, when you think this is really dying, there comes a point when you say, "This is what I wanted. Uh, this is what it means to have a soul. I want to please all the readers with a picture that has that soul in it. For that reason, I put my life on the line, abandoning my own greed and killing myself. No matter how painful it is, I will do it. That's all I can do." This guy's cool, objectively, and you in the bringing it back to the video game
little
world.
edgy, but okay.
Oh, no. This guy's tough. He's got it. He's got thick skin, I guess you could say. But going back to video games, Valve apparently they're banning AI generated content because they're a company who realizes where this rabbit hole goes to, and it's not anywhere that's good for the developers. Who, I'll say it again, I'm a broken record. We care about them more than we care about games. So, yeah, getting some on the fly dialogue from an NPC just doesn't really stack up to that element of the world, people. And unfortunately, these companies, I don't think, should be given the benefit of the doubt to say that they care about them over profit. Because as we've seen with all the layoffs and as we see with the emergence of AI, that'll become more and more true.
Yeah, it's just exhausting. It's just like,
It is.
why do we have to fight for our rights in this way? Like it's people up at the top too. Those are people too. Are you really just like so deafened by your own egos that you just you're like, ah, fuck it, but it gets me more money? Like, I don't understand how you can experience life in this way. Are these motherfuckers happy? I don't think these motherfuckers are happy.
That's neither here nor there. Money is the goal. Money is the prize.
Speaking of money is the prize, ladies and gentlemen, that's right. GTA 6 has been announced. Get ready for a bunch of money to be made here over at Rockstar Games. Connor, this is your final penny of the day. Go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Yes, this is directly from Rockstar's announcement. There were some rumors coming around, some leaks about them coming up with something, an announcement trailer, whatever. A message from Rockstar Games. This is dated November 8th, 2023. Next month starts the 25th anniversary of Rockstar Games. Thanks to the incredible support of our players worldwide, we have had the opportunity to create games we are truly passionate about. Without you, none of this would be possible, and we are so grateful to all of you for sharing this journey with us. In 1998, Rockstar Games was founded on the idea that video games could come to be as essential to culture as any other form of entertainment, and we hope that we have created games you love in our efforts to be part of that evolution. We are very excited to let you know that in early December, we will release the first trailer for the next Grand Theft Auto. We are very excited to let you know that we look forward to many more years of sharing these experiences with all of you. Thank you, Sam Hauser. I cannot wait to hear people not shut the fuck up about GTA 6. I'm so excited for that.
I mean, this is our news cycle for the next 2 years, Connor. Get ready.
It definitely is. And I'm not the biggest supporter of GTA. I think GTA 5 is a very average game that's blown up to be a masterpiece when it's, I think, anything but. Yeah, I know. I'm pretty harsh on it. Harsher than I would be on something like Mario, which I do the same thing for, which I think has.
You're
more
so
of a leg to
wrong
stand
about
on.
Mario. You're so wrong about Mario.
But I that's more of just like me being a contrarian in that regard.
That's
Mario,
100% what that is.
At the core of it is extremely well-made games, good games. And GTA's, it's well made. It's just those elements that carry it don't pop out in my eyes in any substantial way. Though, with how much they've spent on this game, it's the most expensive game being made. $1.1 to $2 billion is being spent on the development of it. I do have, I can find it, but I have very high hopes for it, right? And I hope that what they have to offer is, honestly, I don't even know, because GTA 5, for all the criticisms I can lay on it, it has so much stuff. It does so much. It's why it's been able to stay in the conversation. They've continuously put out content for that game and
it's 10 years old.
Yeah, and it's 10 years old, and it's pushed past it. I mean, Rockstar does deserve respect for the games they make, because they really are able to push the limits of what games are able to do. Mm-hmm. Red Dead Redemption less so, but GTA most certainly.
But these are still phenomenal games. Their track record is insane. Their shooting average is nuts.
Yeah, it really is. And so I'm interested to see what form this next game takes. I'm assuming it's going to be announced at the Game Awards, but it could also not be. We kind of had small discussion on that on our little Discord where we throw ideas at one another, particularly this between Phil and Tavin.
Yeah.
Um, Bring it on. Let's see how big that trailer gets.
Listen, it'd be cool to see GTA at the Game Awards. That mostly just because of how many eyes it would bring to the Game Awards, and I love the Game Awards. I really like what Jeff Keighley is doing in the space, and having those eyes on it, especially for the Game Awards being its 10th year, is very, very exciting. But I think GTA is too big for the Game Awards. I think it's bigger than the Game Awards. I think whatever trailer they're going to announce is going to get 7 billion views on YouTube, no matter what. And there is something to be said that if GTA is at the Game Awards, every other announcement at the Game Awards is going to get overshadowed, and no one's going to talk about it, and no one's going to care, which sucks for those. But it's a tricky balance. I bet you more than anything, Jeff is knocking on Rockstar's door, going, "Hey guys, what you doing? What's going on over there?" Or he's been knocking, of course, like for the last 6 months, probably has been knocking on their door, going, "Hey, what do you guys got?" And it would be cool to see it happen. But we will see. With all of that, December 7th for the Game Awards, and by the time you're hearing this, nominations are out, so we'll talk about that next week. So we're just we're out of date already on those, and I mean, to your point, Connor. Listen, none of Rockstar games are in my favorite video games of all time list, but I really, really like Rockstar games. It's one of those, it's a big moment when a Rockstar game hits shelves. The world kind of stops for this developer, not just the industry, the world. Like everything stops when a GTA comes out, especially after Grand Theft Auto 5. So yeah, this one's gonna be huge. It's gonna be big, and I don't even know what to expect from it. I mean,
Yeah.
There are so many questions I already have. As soon as you say Grand Theft Auto 6, what does that mean? What are you gonna call it? Are you calling it GTA 6? Are you calling it something else? I think it'd be stupid if you didn't. What city is it gonna take place in? Everybody seems pretty certain that it's gonna take place in Vice City. That would be interesting to see return. How do you announce it? What type of game is it? Obviously, it's going to be an open world action game like all the other ones, with a big, long ass, overbloated story like every other Rockstar game is. But are we doing the three main characters thing again? Are we doing more? Are we doing less? Are we doing one?
I think from what we've kind of heard, the most we do is 2, if not just 1. From what I'm understanding.
I don't know where you're pulling all these things from, Connor. Where are you pulling all these things from?
That first thing was concept art that was released a while ago. It was early in-game footage stuff.
Oh, was it the leaks? The old leaks from last year?
Old leaks. Yeah. But just to back myself up here, from the Economic Times, I'll read this really quickly. GTA 6 is one of the most anticipated games, blah, 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 blah. There are reports which have revealed the estimated values of the previous GTA video games. Now, the upcoming GTA 6's budget is reportedly the most ambitious one. The production cost of the GTA 6 video game reaches up to billions. There are rumors that GTA 6 is expected to be the most expensive video game ever made. The cost of GTA 6 is rumored to be between $1 billion and $2 billion. Dextro Gaming has claimed that GTA 6...
Okay.
I mean, it makes sense with what they're going to make, what they've already made with GTA 5, going into GTA 6, which is going to even get more fanfare in its initial release, not just what they have planned down the future. Because this is, this I can see this lasting longer than GTA 5, considering the technology is even more advanced and is going to continue to be in a more advanced space than GTA 5 was, which released on the Xbox 360 and PS3. I mean, there's a big jump from that to PS5 and Xbox One. And so I have no... that's why I don't even question whether that's true or not. It's at least be in near that area. And GTA 6... That's
a lot of money. That's a lot. That is way more than most games productions. It's not like we're getting closer and closer to $1 billion worth of production. Let me find out, what was the production cost of GTA 5? $265 million. So from 265 to over $1 billion is fucking nuts. Let's take it back to just their last thing, Red Dead Redemption 2. And don't get me wrong, I believe that this one will be the most expensive one in Rockstar's catalog. Analyst estimations place the game. This is Red Dead Redemption 2. Place the game's combined development and marketing budget between 370 and 540. So we're gonna go in more than double what Red Dead Redemption 2 did, and that's with marketing.
Think about what Red Dead Redemption is. It's a game set in the Western. It's very expansive, very detailed, which we can expect from GTA 6. But GTA 6 has way more activities, crazier activities, bigger set pieces. I mean, just going off GTA 5, they're going to try and top themselves. And even if you're just comparing what GTA 5 would be on new modern content that has fast load times, that has constant updates of making the game look even better, packed with even more content like they've done with GTA 5. I just see themselves, and like I said, the fact that they're going bigger than GTA 5 on this modern hardware, I think indicates that it is going to be closer to that number. I mean, like, think about it. You can just hop in a jet and go wherever. If the fidelity that they're probably going to be offering with GTA 6, and like you said, we don't really have the ability to conceptualize what else they're going to be doing, since it's just so in a new world, and GTA always tries to push the boundaries of what they can do. I don't think that's an unfeasible number, especially with how much it takes to make video games in general. If they're trying to go over boundaries, 1 billion is viable.
Well, like, even to like put this in context, like I'm gonna combine the production costs of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, because let's be honest, that was they they shot it at the same time. It was one big ass movie that they split into two and made a quick buck in the middle. Is not even cracking $700 million. It's $356 million for Endgame, $316 million for Infinity War. We're gonna surpass that. I mean, sure, possibly, probably, but like, when we start getting in this range, every 100 million after that gets so much harder to get to, like, and then just being in the range of 1 to 2 billion, like, that gives the idea that we're gonna get close to 2 billion. Not a fucking chance.
Yeah, I don't think the 2 billion number is the one that's gonna be hit. I'm thinking more in terms of 1 billion, maybe a little bit over.
But even that would be absolutely,
of course it would.
That would be insanity if that were to happen. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's fucking crazy that it does. And then, like, I don't know if Take-Two or fucking Rockstar announces fucking layoffs 6 months after GTA 6 comes out. What the fuck are we doing? Burn the world to the ground. What?
Oh yeah, nothing else will survive. It basically scorched earth at that point.
Like, what is happening? Anyways.
I will say, by the way, GTA 5 made about $8 billion.
Yeah, after 10 years, and they also made it. They made $1 billion in a day or some shit like that. Or
probably
5 days.
Sure.
They made $1 billion really fast. Like, I remember those headlines. And then they make a quick $500 million every time they put out a remaster, and then every expansion and thing after that. And remember that GTA 5 is one of the biggest games ever made, just because it was constantly in top 10 highest sales for months for years and years and years. And guess what? In December, it's gonna be in the top 10 again. Probably gonna be pretty high. So yeah, it's pretty crazy out here. Connor, are you sure you're not into GTA 5?
No,
you're not sure.
I am sure.
Okay.
I am sure. Yeah.
Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for. Are you excited for GTA 5, Connor? Or 6?
GTA 6. Not excited. I'm interested.
Okay. I'm relatively excited.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what the online structure looks like, because they're going to have to restructure that whole thing. So I'm curious to see how that looks, especially in today's modern age. You go and try and play GTA online, and it's complicated. But now in today's age, where we're past the Fortnites, we're past the Destinies, we're past all of this. What does a GTA Online 2 look like? I don't know. Let's find out. GTA 6, I think, is going to be, the biggest game ever of all time, and I'm excited to see it. But, until that time, this has been the Two Penny Gamescast. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you can catch us every week, Monday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. You can also catch us live over at twitch.tv/2pennygames every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Time until, we change it, to watch us record all of our shows live. Remember, even though the news is over, me and Connor are not going anywhere. The Alan Wake 2 review is coming up right now. So make sure you stick stay tuned for that, or go watch the video version over at youtube.com/@2pennygames. Until next time, have a great time. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
See you guys later.
What's poppin', players? Welcome back to a 2-Penny Games review, this time for Alan Wake 2. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host, say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Hello. It's a nice day today.
It is indeed. At least I hope it is, because we have not stepped outside today. Connor, you and I have both played, and we have both beaten Alan Wake 2. We came quite down to the wire. I literally finished the game 10 minutes ago. So
Yep.
I'm very excited to talk about it and have a deeper conversation of it. Of course, spoiler free here. And if you have any interest in this game at all, I do recommend playing this one. But to start it out, I think Alan Wake 2 is a good game. It reaches for a lot of high heights and comes short in a lot of different ways. But most importantly and overall, I think its biggest strength is its narrative. Not only the storytelling that happens within it, but the conversation that it sparks after it. Me and Connor have been playing this game over the last week or two, and it's led to so many great conversations where we're just sitting in the kitchen talking about the different elements of what's happening and where the story's going and how all of these elements tie together and what they create. And all of that has been so invigorating and so engaging and so much fun. The best part about Alan Wake 2 is the thoughts about Alan Wake 2. However, the rest of the game is a little subpar, in my opinion. Most egregiously is its gameplay. Though I don't think it's bad by any means. It just simply works. It is fine. It does the job it needs to do and nothing more. Never while I am playing this game do I feel like I'm having the best time while playing it. And this goes across the board for every element, whether it's combat, shooting, whether it's the detective gameplay elements of the game, or the story building elements of the game. Because this being an Alan Wake game, you are quite literally crafting the story to get through the environments and so forth. The exploration of this game, I think, is quite subpar. Overall, nothing is necessarily bad, but nothing is great in terms of that. But what is great and is phenomenal is the presentation, the lighting, the fidelity of the game. The game looks so beautiful. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous video game. And again, its narrative, at first I wasn't sure about it. It started strong, and then in the middle, I felt like it was losing me, but it got me right back in the end. And I think this is one of the greatest endings to a video game this year. And overall, as a narrative package, I think this is one of the best narratives of the year. It's just that the whole game around it just kind of left me feeling numb to it, and I wish it was a little stronger. Connor, am I crazy? Where are you at with this game?
I think Alan Wake 2 is a great game. You know, I echo some of the things you say. Combat most definitely is the weaker part. Certain parts of the game, the level design isn't exactly up to snuff, particularly the first time you play as Alan Wake, because the game does this really, as you said, the narrative is by far the best and most interesting part of this game. It makes you think very hard. And it is able to do so especially well due to the dual narrative that's going on that can be switched to at any time, from Saga Anderson, the FBI agent who's trying to piece everything together, and Alan Wake himself, who the first game you played as. And it's able to send you on this spiral downwards of a narrative where you don't even know what's true, what's false, and even if you are super confident in what the game is telling you, it can pull the rug out from under you at any moment in time, because the game itself is super surreal. Alan Wake segments particularly have some of the best visuals I've seen in games, just being able to change the entire setting of an area by using this light that you have attached to a lamp that can take light sources from one place to another, and you can use that to traverse through the world and solve the murder mysteries that you're trying to go through and do, which ironically is based off of the books that Alan Wake, the character, wrote, and was a heavy focus in the first game. like I said, the combat it just feels kind of stiff. It resembles things like the Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil 2, but it like expects more from you, like a lot more faster paced than I would say either of those games. Particularly in one segment near the end of the game, which visually it was very very cool, awesome, resembling a part that happened in the first game. But the combat just really brought that segment down because it clearly just wasn't made for that kind of setting. So it's very limited. And I hope if they make subsequent Alan Wake games, that's going to be their main area to focus on. Um, like I said, level design I thoroughly enjoyed. I know, Tavin, you didn't really have the most fun with it.
It's pretty plain. I think it's very linear and confusing. Like it's really hard to get around and get a sense of where my environments are. And I'm constantly pulling up my map and going, okay, where the fuck am I now? Okay, great. And then I take one turn and I go, all right, where am I now? And I pull it right back up again. I really could have used a mini map or something.
And I think that's to its strengths, though. It's like that's what they're trying to do, particularly during Alan Wake segments. With sagas, I can understand that being a heavier criticism, though I had an easier time traversing her levels. So I think that kind of equals it out to where I would say that it has a very nice level design. I do like the exploration. The things that you can find nursery rhymes, caches, manuscript pages, all those kinds of things that really just develop the story further. My main issue with it is that after finishing the game, where I was thinking that these things would lead to interesting little bits of information that the main story doesn't tell you, they pretty much wrap everything up in that by the end of the story. So I have very little incentive to go and do that kind of stuff, which while I was playing it, I was looking forward to actually possibly doing that. But it really just yields no results or little to no results. The acting in this game is great because it transitions to live action, and they do a very good job of it. You know, it doesn't really feel awkward. Obviously, I think the live action come across as a little bit stiffer compared to the video games because these people make video games. They don't make movies. And so that kind of, like I said, comes off stiff in certain segments, but for the most part, it does a very good job of that. Especially, there's so many sections in this game that really stand out in my mind. I was mentioning one near the end of the game. There's another one that Tavin probably knows what I'm referring to when you're playing as Alan Wake, and those kinds of scenes make this game stick in my mind more than most other narrative-focused games that are out there. Also, I didn't know if you found this out, Tavin. There's basically just a short film that you can watch in the game itself, and you'd watch it whenever you want. And it's a pretty well-made one. It's surreal, like the game itself, and it's able to just really include all of these unique game design choices to make this stand out in my mind as a great game. That's why I call it as such.
Yeah, and again, I'm with you on a lot of this. I just really think the video game elements of this really hold it back for me. But I think Remedy has really done something very, very special here. This is the best case, the best evident case of pointing to a game and going, "Oh, video games are art." Like, go look at Alan Wake 2 and look at what that game's doing and how trippy and metaphorical and meta and abstract we're getting in this space on this level. You know, Remedy's a AA studio at best, and their last two entries have been fucking phenomenal games. Being Control. I like Control way more than this game. Control, I don't understand how gameplay-wise we go from something so awesome like Control, and then we cut to Alan Wake 2 and it's so bland. And you bring up Resident Evil 3 and even 2 and all that, and if you just look at other survival horror games in the genre, stiff controls are an element of survival horror. Like, usually your character cannot move super free flowing or whatever, and they may give you things to counteract that, but this game so desperately wants to be an action game, and it's just not. And it's not a very good survival horror game, so we kind of get this weird, middle child of it. That it's just oh, these elements just did not come across or did not, develop in the ways that I think we should. It's all stitched together in my head of okay, well. The level design is a lot of winding paths and very confusing, and I find myself lost a lot, which makes exploration frustrating at times. Met with action gameplay that is one very stiff, but then they throw enemy combatants at you that are not stiff, and they throw a lot of them at you sometimes, which does lead to some frustrations. Connor, you mentioned a point at the end of the game that like looked awesome, but like gameplay wise kind of fell apart. It's because they throw 20 enemies at you like it's a game from 2011 or something, where they just like throw waves and waves of guys at you, and it just doesn't like the gameplay. The core gameplay action loop just like collapses underneath it. I was very frustrated in multiple parts in that game, but that part specifically, even though the narrative moment and the context around it was epic as hell. You mentioned the live action elements. I agree with you. Those are dope. Remedy is really, really good at combining video game and live action elements together. Like it feels, as seamless as ever before. Like I don't want to say as seamless as possible, but like, like you do a hard cut from video game to real life and you don't blink. Like you're like, nah, makes sense. I'm with you 100%. And all of that's really cool. I think it's a lot of the, they do a lot of crossfading and stuff in the, have we talked about the mind place element stuff in this game?
No, we have not.
Yeah. So basically like this game pretends to be a detective game where you play as Saga Anderson and Alan Wake. Alan Wake is like piecing together a narrative because he's a writer. Saga Anderson is a detective for the FBI. And so she's got, her like, pictures and writings, and then the red string, like tying all of these things together as she's like putting clues together. All of these elements are pretty superficial in my mind because it's like you don't even outside of when the narrative forces you to engage with it, you don't really need to engage with it at all. It doesn't lead anywhere, which is really disappointing, especially after playing Spider-Man 2, where all of their side quests lead to something and give you a really great narrative beat. This, it's just like, all right, I pinned up all these things, and I'm like, all right, cool, I pinned them up. Like,
go to the next point.
Yeah, 100%. Like it, like you don't feel like you did anything. You just feel like it feels like checking off or ticking off a checklist like type thing, which is kind of annoying. But in the mind place, which is a place inside each character's mind where they can piece things together and so forth. There are elements where Saga does profiling. Which is one of the bigger offenders early on. It gets explained narratively later, but like she just like profiles whoever she's thinking about, and then like comes across narrative beats that like come from fucking nowhere, and you're like, how did you decipher that information at all? There's a narrative reason for it. It's pretty weak. But it is just to keep the story going and keep the gameplay elements going. And they have really cool like segments where like the person she's profiling will have live action footage superimposed on top of her video game model. And I think this helps kind of marry the two. And whenever this happens, whenever the live action kind of gets sort of an opaque version of it gets kind of placed on top of the video game footage, it helps marry those two so that when we do cut to hard live action footage, it doesn't feel otherworldly. You're not getting that uncanny valley between the two things, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be so annoying sometimes if it didn't really just force you to do it, where it would kind of break up the pacing of the game to where you're having to take apart from these really interesting story beats to map out basic stuff or things that could have been done in a more interactive way, because it really does just hold your hand through the entirety of it, and it feels less like a game mechanic and more like a plot device, which that's kind of the only time where the focus on narrative really kind of cuts in to the gameplay itself, to the game itself. But thankfully, it's, you can get through it pretty quickly because it's so handholdy to you, and so once you just get past that, you can get back into the meat of the game.
But it's also just so tedious. Because, like, it doesn't control very well. Because, like, it's, like, just this big board, and you're using, playing on PlayStation, you're, like, using the thumbstick to, like, move a cursor around and slowly move a picture up to a note card that we've written up and placing it there. All right, then we're going back to our hand, and we're bringing another clue up to the note card up at the top. And it's very slow and sometimes you're like, okay, does it go in this line of thinking? No, it doesn't. Okay, so now I have to drag it to this other line of thinking. Oh, it doesn't fit there either. Oh, okay, now I got it in this. Okay, now we've got it. All right, now we can move on. I have the same problem with the map. controlling the map is frustrating and annoying. Connor, did you ever do the thing where like you meant to zoom in and you just wanted like just a general zoom in, but then your cursor's in the wrong place and it zooms in on your cursor?
Yes, all
So
the
then you're like,
time.
fuck, this isn't where I want to be, and you have to zoom back out, move the cursor, zoom back in. Like this type of stuff is just like the stuff that kind of like grinds my gears and makes me and halts me from going, oh, this game is great, and pulls me back to be like, it's just good. It's just good. It's really good,
Yeah.
but it's just good.
I think ultimately things like that just kind of fall by the wayside when I look at the whole picture. You know, it's those little moments like with the storyboarding, the case building, and the map issues when you bring up the full one. But overall, I think that's pretty negligible in light of the story, and I think the level design and the visuals you're seeing really combats the big thing that holds the game down from rising above its station. I've definitely become super interested in what Remedy itself is doing with their Alan Wake / Control universe, because it does occupy the same space, and there's references to the two, heavy references in some cases, and they're obviously doing
you get characters from both games in this one. Like
you do,
it's
yes,
really cool.
and it's correct me if I'm wrong because I get these things wrong pretty easily, but there's a Control multiplayer game coming out from Remedy, and I'm just really hooked on what they're going to do, because Tavin, you've said to play Control. A friend of mine, Jordan, said to play Control. They've pushed it relentlessly. I mean, they gave a free update back when the PS5 came out. I think they did a PS5 version of the game.
Yep.
They've pushed it heavily, and I always respected them for that, but now at this point, I'm like, man, you had something going. You were doing something with your plans being laid out. So now I'm dying to play Control, to see what that game is going to do, because the surreal supernatural elements of Alan Wake are just so interesting from a storytelling perspective, gameplay perspective. Anything can be improved upon, because there's going to be another game. I'm saying it right now, no spoilers. There's going to be another one. It'd be weird if there wasn't. And
I don't know if it'll be like an Alan Wake 3 or anything, but there's another game in this universe. Like there's more game. Like the story will continue from this universe.
And there's DLC confirmed too, I think, so far.
Probably, yeah.
So we'll see what
they did for Control too.
Yeah. They did one for Control that is an Alan Wake DLC. So who knows what they'll do with their new DLCs. I don't really understand why it's gotten as much praise as it has. I mean, I could see it. I just don't agree with it. But that aside, it's a great game. It's one of these. It's one of the ones that stuck out this year the most.
For sure. There's a lot of things that like I want to commend and I want to praise and I want to be like, oh yeah, this, that, and the third. But like in such a heavy competitive year, like all of the game of the year talk around this game is bewildering to me. Like this game is not in that conversation to me at all. But it's still quite good, and I do recommend playing it. But like, it's not I don't even think it's a must-play game. Like, I don't think you need to rush out and play this game. I described it to Phil this morning as like if you have an interest in it and you've got some free time, if you got a couple of weeks like where you're not playing anything else or anything else important, yeah, absolutely play this game. But like there are so many elements about this game that like started an itch in me that the game never scratched. Like it started a survival horror itch. Well, it's not much of a survival horror game. It's not very scary. You're not really worrying about your resources too much. Like for the most part, the game provides you with plentiful resources to, at the bare minimum, get the job done. I think there was one time where like I ran out of battery in the flashlight, and then I was like, all right, well, I'll just run past this encounter, and then you can just run past the encounter and you're fine.
Which gameplay is the one thing that was not improved from Alan Wake 1 to 2. Different, but not improved. I think Alan Wake...
What are the differences here? So this game feels like 2012 and 2011, whenever Alan Wake 1 came out.
Definitely not the same. So, I mean, like, it's the same era. I agree. But it's not the same style of game. It's, first of all, it's third person, but it's way farther back. Your character moves a lot faster, can turn a lot faster. It doesn't have the traditional survival horror gameplay elements like those Resident Evils.
This one or the first one?
We've come to know. The first one. Okay. It's not like that. It's, very fast moving. You can turn around really quickly, which there's, like I said, there's an action scene in that game. The gameplay lends itself to those moments way better. And is it a better overall combat system? Slightly, but not by a big margin, which is just kind of makes it all the more disappointing. The
first game or the second game is better?
The first game, I think, is kind of better, honestly. Wow. The moments that come across just kind of play better. it also doesn't feel like I'm getting, screwed over by the controls, which unfortunately with Alan Wake 2, one of the things that you'll do sometimes, and Tavin, you've echoed this as well, when you're changing to a weapon,
Oh
you
my
get
God.
hit, and it cancels out you changing to that weapon. There's other ones where I select a healing item, and there's these pills, and they only heal a little bit of health, and I want to keep popping them, but it changes off it each time, so I'm constantly having to go back, and it becomes very annoying. Also, as well as the quick slot system, which is good, but it could have used more spaces with the amount of items that the game has to offer you. It kind of seems like it limits you for no particular reason to what items you can specifically carry, because once again, going back to that last action part where it was the most important, and I think that moment really needed to nail it. It just unfortunately didn't, because I was, like, oh, I don't have any more health kits because I had to forego some of them because I needed to, no, that wasn't the criticism. I wanted to have fire canisters. I wanted to have flares. I wanted to have possibly another you using another one of the weapons that you get during the game. I won't spoil it, even though it's not really a big spoiler. It just limits your inventory when it doesn't need to, especially with how much you can carry to begin with. Which you can upgrade it, but not exactly. You can't hold that much stuff.
Yeah. I mean, in that realm, I didn't have problems with that. It was just the actual interacting with the UI and with the inventory system is what bothered me. You mentioned the quick select. This is very much like The Last of Us, where you've got the 4 directions and you just use the D-pad to navigate those, and you have 2 slots in every direction. So you click the D-pad right twice, and you have a second thing. So this could be I'll very often keep the weapon on the first one, keep a healing item on the second one. My thing about it is let's say I have the pistol on the right slot, but the first one, and then a healing item on the second one, right? And we're only going in the right direction. Well, if I have my pistol equipped, that automatically in the game puts me on right one. So instead of clicking the button twice to go to the healing item, which is how most games do it, it automatically defaults you to already being there. So you only have to click the button once to get to the healing item. But if you click it again, it cycles you back to the pistol. So there are times where I'm trying to get my healing item, and I'm automatically double clicking the button, because that's how inventory systems like this work in every other game, is you double click it because the first click is always to the first slot, and then the second click because it's the second slot. But in this one, if you're already equipped the first slot thing, the second click will put you on the second thing. It's really annoying. So I'm going to grab some painkillers or something, and I just end up pulling out my pistol again, and I'm like, what the fuck? Come on, this is not what I wanted. Also, not even Connor, the way you described it is getting hit in the process of switching. I will have fully switched. I have a flare in my hand. I can press the button to use it. Get hit, switches me back to my gun. And I'm like, damn. Why did we choose to do this? This was a choice we made. And this is getting in the way. And it's making these combat segments that never feel great, often kind of get a little annoying. And it makes them so much worse, because now you are preventing me from just doing the simple things that I want to do.
You see, the saving grace of the combat is, and you had mentioned this before during one of our talks, it never gets bad. It never gets that one segment. It's aggravating, but at least it's not so much of an issue that you're constantly just okay, I want to be done with this combat encounter. Kill me now. Which unfortunately some games do, and Alan Wake did as well, the first one. But that was more attributed to level design, I think, than the combat system itself and enemy varieties. Which in this game, also going to enemy varieties, the ones when they go past, it really is not good. When they go past the normal enemies, they just get really stupid. Ones that teleport everywhere, which once again the combat system doesn't really allow you to factor that in, especially when they teleport behind you and you have to use the not that great dodge to get away from their attacks. But sometimes you can't even see coming, based off how the game is building and how the enemy is moving. And there's another enemy that takes a bunch of bullets and it sends out a large projectile that you have to be in certain locations to not get hit. If you're in too tight of quarters, you just can't really avoid it all that well. And they also disappear, and you have to shine. You can shine your light, I guess, to make them pop up. But I don't even know if you're supposed to do that. It was very confusing because the light would act as if though it's kind of making them be revealed to be attacked, which is how the classic Alan Wake game used to work. But it would, what's happening. It would go into the puddles and then it would jump out at you when it came closer to you. It was kind of like 2 shadowy figures conjoined to one another. They were kind of floating.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't remember that guy? They would come up every now and then. You would fight them. You fought one during that cool segment near the
Oh,
end.
you're talking
You fought one-
it's got a bottom. It's like a floating like
Yes.
witch character, and it's got like a top half and a bottom half, and it's the same half.
Yes.
But okay, yeah.
Yeah, that when they go into that kind of enemy design, enemy variety, it just doesn't work. They
It's
didn't
just a bullet
really.
sponge. Like it just
It is just a bullet sponge, and its teleportation just doesn't make any sense when I was playing the game. It's disappearing act.
Well, that's when
Like,
one
I didn't
half
know if I was-
dies.
Yeah, but I didn't know. It didn't seem like I could. Like, it seemed like I could shine the light on it to make it appear out of its like little ripple that
No,
is
You just
going
wait
along.
for it to.
but
You just wait for it to show itself again.
then don't put the effect that it's doing something when you shine your light on it.
Well, this
because-
is also another critique of mine, and now we're getting into art, where like, I think the art of the game kind of fails. This is a dark game, lots of shadows, lots of darkness. You can barely see the B-roll footage on the YouTube video right now. And you know the only source of really good light is your one flashlight. But then the game will get distorted, and it'll start putting shadows on top of light. This is a very purposeful like effect, so that like it could be like a shadow existing within light, which again works beautifully for the narrative and the world you've created. But for the style of gameplay you've chosen to go, it's distracting and it's confusing, and it kind of creates a visual muddying to where I'm looking at the game and I'm going, I don't know what's happening on screen right now.
Yeah.
Because it's so dark and you're putting dark effects on my only source of light, in distorted, like twisty ways that like, I don't know if an enemy is attacking me. I don't know if they're teleporting. I don't know if they're, just staggered. I don't know if they're, evolving into their second phase of the fight. Like all and none of these things could be happening at the same time. And it's just confusing.
Oh, Tavin. In the first Alan Wake game, my God.
Worse?
You would obscenely worse. Like,
Oh
it's
my
the worst
God.
part of the game. It gets to the point where I'm just like, what's going on? And it's even more muddy. Even more, if you can believe that. To
Yeah,
where you just can't even sometimes see where you're going.
It definitely happened here. And you mentioned the dodge. How is the dodge equally overpowered and also not proficient? Like, like there are
I don't
times
even
where I'm
know
like,
what
I'm just dodging my way out of everything. Like this combat encounter, I'm just gonna dodge around it and leave. And then there are other times where I'm like, this dodge doesn't fucking work. I get hit no matter what. What is going on here?
Yeah, I've dodged at certain points, particularly with the wolves that you sometimes fight, and they'll go past me, but it'll still get hit.
Exactly.
Because I'm like, they're like, paw touched me, I guess. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I dodged that. I don't know.
Same
what
thing
you wanted me to
happens
do
with
there.
when they throw their weapons at you. Very Resident Evil 4 with like how they're throwing their axes and stuff at you. And it's like, all right, I dodged. I'm clearly well under it and I still get hit. And I'm like, all right, well, come on. And then, oh, there was something and I've lost it. Damn it. Talking the dodge.
Come on.
Talking the dodge. Oh, I mean, to piggyback off of what you were saying, when characters are like zipping around real fast and teleporting and they're like staying on the outer rim and throwing projectiles at you, the game's just not built for that.
It's
In
not.
most survival horror games, if an enemy has a projectile, they cannot move, or they don't move, or they take up a large amount of space and they don't move very fast. So that you never lose track of where they are. In this game, it's like, yo, these enemies are moving like they're in God of War. What is going on here? Like, this is not what the type of game that you're building. And it's like, it is a survival horror game built by action game devs. And just the marriage of this idea just didn't come together 100%. And I kind of find that true in most development spaces where like really great survival horror devs, if you look at Resident Evil, if you look at Dead Space, like that combat is good for the game that it's in. And it falls apart under any other type of gameplay. And I think the same has happened here, but in reverse, where we have really great action devs trying to put themselves in a survival horror setting. And I think they have, for the most part, gotten the movement of the player character right, but the movement and the way that the NPCs work does not work for this type of game. They play in a action game sense. The player character plays in a survival horror game. And the mashing of the two does not work.
It's very true. And we're kind of criticizing this game heavily at this point, but it really just the combat is the one that could be super criticized to any major degree, which, list that as a positive or a negative as you please. In the whole package, it at least it has so many great story elements and I think level design elements that carries that combat through the rest of it. Doesn't make it ridiculously annoying to play or angering to play. It's just one that doesn't really stick in your mind as something that plays particularly well. You know, it's not like when you're thinking of some of the nicer combat systems in gaming, nowhere near Alan Wake 2 is going to be there, which, as you said before, is very strange with how much people praise Control, and they just weren't able to translate that into this next game.
Control plays like fucking butter next to this thing, man. It's golden next to this thing. It's very confusing how we went from that to this. And action is something that Remedy gets praised in a lot. Like Quantum Break, people liked that gameplay. Like to my knowledge, it was just like sort of the merging of TV and video games that didn't work for them and so forth. So, you know, it's just it's an interesting thing for this studio to get stuck on for me. I do want to say we keep praising the narrative. I'll say this is not a traditional story. This is not a Last of Us. This is not even like a Resident Evil type story. None of that. Like, this is a very metaphorical, artsy ass story. It is so much about your interpretation of things. It is very pretentious. And it's 100% about like, what are you pulling away from this story? Not so much what is this story giving you. It's not based. It is based in character, but like that's not the focus of it. It's more focused on the thematic elements of it and sort of, you know, what is the meta narrative trying to say. And again, that's why like I think it starts very strong because it starts kind of plot heavy, and then as we get into the middle, it gets a little more like ethereal and so forth, and like it just doesn't make a lot of sense at some points. But I think it just ties in very well at the end. The last 2 hours of this game are awesome. Narratively, one of the most like creative, bold, brave, and interesting endings to a video game I've seen in years. And so like my thing is like you don't need to play this game, but if you play this game, get to the end. Don't pick it up for 5 hours and put it down and be like, okay, I get it. No, you really don't get it. Go to the end. It's one of those where you do have to play the whole thing. Go play the whole thing.
There's a heavy inspiration from the first Alan Wake game and this one as well to a TV series that came out in the 90s called Twin Peaks, written by David Lynch, which has those kinds of storytelling beats where it's very, you take away from it what you will. It gets very surreal, very abstract. And for people that like those, that television show and like David Lynch's films, that's where I say this is a must-play game for those people. But for the average gamer, for most people that play video games, that's what I just said. It's really just, you know, if you have interest in it, whether it's from the gameplay or the level design, it's a one I would recommend picking up.
Yeah. But like, I mean, Resident Evil fans, this isn't gonna do it for you. Like this is not that. It kind of wants to be, but it just doesn't do it. And that is disappointing to me because the preview footage led me to believe that we were going very hard in that route, and it's not that. Which it has, you know, ups and downs for that. Like it's not really trying to be that, but it's trying to sort of what's the word? Not imitate, but it's trying to like sort of like effecate. Is that the word? It's just kind of like trying to be like an echo of that to do something else. And what I think it does with the narrative, I think, is really bold and great. Music's great. Music's dope.
We haven't
even gotten there. God, the music plays such a, in which is weird because the music plays such a pivotal role in the game. It's awesome. It's so epic. It's so fun. It's so miserable at points, and it just like, again, the emotional state of this game is just so effective.
I'm saying it right now. I think it's the best music this year, as far as what everything else has provided us. It just the gameplay segments where music is involved are sick as hell. Like some of the best segments in gaming this year. And then you also have some songs that play at the end of each chapter, particularly Alan Wake segments, which I'm just waiting for that song to come out on Spotify so I can add it onto my music. Like I'm chomping at the bit to. And as good as some other songs have been this year, I don't think anyone has come to that level. Especially with its inclusion with gameplay. It's a video. We're talking about video games here, and no other game out there this year has included their gameplay segment and music segment so flawlessly as this game has.
Hi-Fi Rush.
Shit. Damn it. Damn it.
No,
Okay.
I mean, this has been a competitive year in
question.
all aspects. I
Damn,
think narrative,
man.
actually, I don't think there's been a lot of great narratives this year. But, you know, so I think, to me, it's like this, Spider-Man, and probably Final Fantasy 16 are in the running for best narrative of the year.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, really? Baldur's Gate?
Yeah, it is so many cool things with its characters. It's some of the best RPG casts in recent years with how much it does with each of them.
Okay. Because the way
Like,
you
all of
talked
them have
about
their
it
own
to
journey.
me, the way you talked about it to me in the review, it made it seem like the story wasn't cool, but just how you can interact with the story is cool.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, like, it kind of gets better with the characters themselves the deeper you dive into them, and the interactivity of it just kind of elevates it even more, especially if, once again, we're talking about video games. You know, the more you make it feel like a video game, I think that's when narratives deserve the most praise, when it's able to balance those two things.
Yeah.
But, you know, Baldur's Gate 3 aside, I really do like this game a lot.
Yeah.
And it'll be placing on my top 10 list, I swear. It will be.
I gotta sit with it. I gotta get off the high of the ending, because I'm on the high of the ending right now. I gotta get off of that. And once I get off of that, then I'll be able to determine how much I really, really like this game. But overall, it's a 1 thumbs up. Not a 2 thumbs up, it's a 1 thumbs up. It's a very heavy 1 thumbs up, though. So, play it if you want. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be your review for Alan Wake 2. Thank you so much for watching and listening along with us. Let us know what you thought about Alan Wake 2, or if you'll be picking it up at all. I will say, because we didn't talk about it, you don't need to play the first one. Connor did, I did not. We both got along fine. Like,
you get great value either way, honestly.
Yeah,
Like,
but I think both perspectives give you great value out of it, and lead you down different ways. I'll just say it right now. I was picking up what they were putting down way before Connor did. You know, I figured out where the narrative was going before he did. And he had all this extra context.
You played the ending. You played the ending, and then you're still saying that, huh? You're still doubling down on that?
Connor rolled credits on this game, and his interpretation is still wrong. Like, he's still got it.
No. See, that's, I think, the beauty of the game. The interpretation is different. When you get so abstract with the storytelling, as Tavin said, actually, at the end of when I watched him play just a little while ago, you can basically take it from just one angle. 2 angles is a figurative sense and a literal sense. You know, obviously, and the melding of the two come into play from our perspectives.
It's on a scale or a spectrum of what do you want to believe is real and what is the metaphor, you know? And it's a fascinating balance between all of these elements. God, it's so, like, that alone, we could talk about that for an hour.
Right.
And then we're like, yeah, I didn't like the gameplay. Well, which in a video game, that's not a great thing, in my opinion.
That is not, no.
So, again, let us know if you played it. You don't need to play Control, but you should play Control. Go play Control. Like,
I will be playing it.
Yeah, Control's
I would recommend that, yeah.
Control's a way better game than this game. But not as cool of a narrative in Control, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there. Again, thank you so much for watching and listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, share with a friend, please. It really does help out a lot. Until next time, have a great time. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye.